Today I am making a full Thanksgiving dinner using only crock pots. We're talking green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie, even turkey. Everyone knows that oven space is prime real estate on Thanksgiving Day. And I'm gonna prove that you can make a full Thanksgiving dinner without even opening your oven. You just need like a dozen crock pots and a lot of counter space and maybe a power strip. But then it's set it and forget it. To make a full Crocs-giving, you're gonna need a variety of crock pots. You're gonna need your Big Berthas. You're gonna need your old reliables. You're gonna need your tall boys. Remember, every crock pot has a story. Like this one has seen more potlucks than a Lutheran church basement. This one was given as a Christmas gift to a college boy and never saw the outside of the box. And this one got a little too close with a plastic bag one day and has been scarred for life. Every crock pot has a story. All right, we're gonna do a turkey in a crock pot. You can do it. To cook a turkey in a crock pot though, you can't just use any crock pot. You're gonna need to bust out your Big Bertha. Generally, if you're doing a turkey in a crock pot, you should get like an 8 to 10 pound bird and have at least an 8 to 10 quart crock pot. Easy to remember, 8-pound bird, 8-quart crock pot. However, they didn't really sell any small birds. So this guy's 11 pounds, so we'll see if it works. We're gonna make it work, I mean. Now, before we go and throw our bird into Big Bertha, we're still gonna give it all of the love that you would give to a turkey going into the oven. Take some softened butter, a little bit of fresh thyme, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a little bit of seasoned salt, and then just mix that up. Pat your turkey dry, and then we're gonna cover this baby in butter. But the one thing is, you are not going to get the same crispy skin that you're gonna get in the oven by just cooking it in a crock pot. If you wanna have that nice crispy turkey skin, you're gonna throw it in the broiler a little bit once it's done cooking in the crock pot. Before we put it in our crock pot, we're gonna fill the turkey with some aromatics, which is just a fancy word for things that are gonna make it taste good. Some lemons, and then I've got some rosemary and more thyme. And now the moment of truth. Oh, plenty of room. See, there's nothing the crock pot can't handle. We'll throw about a half a cup of water in there, or chicken broth, beer, wine, brandy, dealer's choice, really. Put a lid on it, it fits, and then cook it on high for about 4 hours, or set it to low and go to sleep knowing that your crock pot will be there in the morning saying Thanksgiving's okay. And that's what crock pots are for. If you only had one crock pot, it should be dedicated to this corn casserole. There's like a couple varieties of crock pot recipes. You got your dump and goes, and then you got your ones where you gotta dirty a dish or two. Never trust a crock pot recipe where you have to dirty more than 3 dishes though. It just defeats the purpose of the crock pot. First up, crack 2 eggs. Whisk up your eggs really quick. Add in 2 cans of creamed corn. It's not a crock pot recipe without like a canned good. And mix those together. Add in 8 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 boxes of Jiffy corn muffin mix. Recipe calls for a cup of sour cream. I like using a cup of top potato, but if you unfortunately live in a place where you can't get top potato, just use sour cream. Cup of shredded cheddar cheese, a little bit of Lowry's, the official seasoning of Midwestern dads. Any seasoned salt, really. 2 cans of regular corn. And then you're just gonna mix that all up. Depending on the crowd you're going for, you can throw in jalapenos. I know my family, and I know I can't do that. And we'll throw in a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Lightly grease your crock pot. I use a 6-quart crock pot for this. Not quite your Big Bertha, but you need a big boy or girl. It's a lot of corn. To prevent this from getting too moist, you're gonna wanna double line it with paper towels on the lid. A little trick. And that's gonna prevent water from building up and dropping on all over your corn. Lock her up. And set that baby to low for about 4 hours. I think the big tip when you're cooking with a crock pot is the double paper towel under the lid, because the downside of crock pots is condensation. This thing was easy, and I could eat a whole crock pot of that. Old reliable recipe needs an old reliable crock pot. We're making green bean casserole. Thanksgiving essential. You're gonna need 3/4 of a cup milk, 2% club, right into the crock pot. And 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup. If you really don't like mushrooms, you could do cream of chicken or cream of potato or cream of whatever, but cream of mushroom's classic. Good. You might be wondering the difference between a hot dish and a casserole. Every hot dish is a casserole, but not every casserole is a hot dish. A casserole might be a side or other things. A hot dish is a meal in a pan. 1/3 of a cup sour cream, a 1/2 teaspoon salt, and 1/2 teaspoon pepper. And then whisk to combine. Canned green beans are fine, but I like fresh. You can either use 4 cans of green beans, or you're gonna need about 1.5 pounds of fresh green beans. And all you gotta do is just trim the ends off and cut them in half. Dump in your green beans, 1/2 cup of cheddar cheese, a well-rounded 1/2 cup, 1/4 cup of Parmesan, 1/2 can of French fried onions. You get the crispy bits on top, but then you also want the crispiness throughout. Mix it up, and you'll save the rest of the onions to top on at the end. Crock-pot casserole, yay! Put a lid on it. Set it to low and let it cook for about 2 to 3 hours. It can be a little longer if you're using fresh green beans. Check out our green bean casserole. Oh yeah, that is bubbly and cheesy. Top it with the rest of your fried onions, which is honestly the best part. I'll put the lid back on. Let it set for another 30 minutes. Maybe put a paper towel down on the top so the condensation doesn't leak in. Let the onions heat up and you're good to go. Thanksgiving is not complete without dessert. You gotta save room for pie. And we're doing the pumpkin pie in the crock pot. You can do anything. Start by cracking 4 eggs. That was a little sloppy. I did get like a tiny, tiny shell in there. 1½ cups, half and half. 1 can of pumpkin puree. And then 3/4 cup of packed brown sugar, 1 1/4 teaspoon cinnamon, teaspoon of ginger, 1/4 teaspoon nutmeg, and 1/4 teaspoon cloves. Just a splash of vanilla and a little bit of salt. Mix that up. Roll out a pie crust. You can make your own pie crust. You can use a store-bought one. We all make concessions. This is a very new crock pot. Potentially, if you're borrowing this from like a male between the ages of 18 to 25, you should check and make sure that the cardboard has been taken off. Grease your crock pot with a little butter. I'm gonna line with 2 strips of parchment paper so I can pull it out easier. Place your pie dough in your crock pot. If you're making this in an oval crock pot, you can roll it out so that the ends are a little bit longer. If you're making it in just a circle crock pot, you're good to go. And then pour in your filling. Put a lid on it and cook on high for like 3½ hours. Now let's see if this pumpkin pie works. I'm the most skeptical of this. Sweet potatoes, the most mysterious part of Thanksgiving. Is it a side dish? Is it a dessert? Is it still a vegetable if it's covered in marshmallows? I don't know, but it's delicious and we're gonna make sweet potato casserole in a crock pot. Peel and dice about 4 pounds of sweet potatoes. Dice them up kind of small, like a little smaller than your standard bar dice. Take 1/4 cup melted butter, add in 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, a teaspoon of vanilla, and 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Like I said, I don't know if this is a vegetable, is it a dessert? I'm not complaining, I'm just thankful. Pour the butter mixture over your sweet potatoes. Let that cook for like 7 hours on low or 3 hours on high, and then you're gonna cover it with marshmallows. Potatoes are ready, give them a little stir. You can mash them if you like them mashed, but you gotta top them with marshmallows. And some chopped pecans too. That's not enough marshmallows. Throw the lid on, let them melt, and you're ready for dinner. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of the marshmallow sweet potatoes, but it's tradition. It's not even dessert. Stuffing. The best part of Thanksgiving is stuffing. Like anything, you can make it in a crock pot. This isn't a dump and go. This is you gotta do a couple steps, then you dump. Start off chopping up about a cup of celery. Chop up an onion. Over medium heat, melt some butter. A 1/2 stick to a stick of butter. To your melted butter, add in your onions and your celery. And then while it's cooking up, just add right into it pork sausage. The sausage stuffing's better. I think you could do this all raw and just throw it in a crock pot and it would be fine. Cooking it ahead of time is gonna make it just a little bit better. This is a nice one. That's a fancy crock pot. To your crock pot, add about 14 ounces of dry bread. You call it stuffing or dressing. I have heard that technically if it is not inside of the bird, it's dressing. Maybe it's a southern thing. I don't know if they call it dressing in the South, but I like stuffing, whether it's in the bird or out of the bird. My mom still cooks the stuffing in the bird. You gotta make sure you cook the inside of the bird enough to make sure that the stuffing isn't gonna give everyone food poisoning. But I mean, my mom's been doing that for years and I haven't gotten food poisoning at Thanksgiving. Throw in sage, rosemary, and thyme. You can use fresh or dried. And then you're gonna use about 32 ounces of chicken stock. You can kind of eyeball it. You don't want your stuffing too dry and you don't want your stuffing too mushy. Whisk up 2 eggs. Pour your egg over. A little more salt and pepper on top. Mix it all up. Cover with a lid and cook on low for about 3 hours or high for like 2. Your stuffing doesn't need to go in a bird. It needs to go in a crock pot. Better than Stouffer's. Yeah, I hate Stouffer's. Is this the most efficient way to make mashed potatoes? Probably not. They're honestly not that hard to just boil on the stove, but you can make mashed potatoes in a crock pot. Peel and dice your potatoes. Or don't peel your mashed potatoes. I don't mind skin, but just make sure they're even so they all cook evenly. And this is like 5 pounds of potatoes, which I think is an appropriate Thanksgiving amount. I'm using red potatoes, but you can use yellow or russet, whatever you like. Add a teaspoon garlic powder, a teaspoon onion powder, some salt, and then about a cup of chicken stock. The crock pot is just kind of steaming your potatoes, not boiling them. Cover it up, cook it on high for 3 to 4 hours or low for 6 to 7 hours. Depending on the car you get an outlet in there. You can cook these on the way to grandma's house, mash them in the car and you're good to go. If you're doing that, make sure you got a crock pot that locks. Let's see how our potatoes are looking. Perfect fork tender. Doesn't get any better than that. Now we gotta mash them. To your potatoes, you're gonna add about 1/4 cup butter, 1/4 cup sour cream or top the tater, a little bit of fresh parsley, just a dash of half and half. Some salt and pepper. You're just gonna mash these babies up. You could totally do this while driving. But don't over mash your potatoes, they like turn to glue. Creamy, dreamy mashed potatoes. Good mashed potatoes. Cover them, keep them on warm, and that's pretty easy. Don't use instant potatoes. I am impressed. Big Bertha did her job. You can cook a turkey in a crock pot. It's a big boy to take out. Oh, the wings just fell right off. See, it's that tender. Okay. We'll maybe pull that wing off too. This is a juicy bird, but not a crispy bird. So we're gonna throw it in the broiler for like 5 minutes. Oh baby, and that bird has gone from floppy to crispy before you can give thanks. Carving a turkey shouldn't be seen as something scary or intimidating. If a crock-pot can make a turkey, you can carve a turkey. And that is the juiciest turkey that I've ever had. No more of Grandma's dried turkey. Sorry, Grandma. The Crocs-giving has turned out good, but what about dessert? Let's check on our pumpkin pie. I think if the pumpkin pie turns out, I might be more impressed with that than a turkey in a crock pot. I did have to do the little paper towel cover because the condensation was building up. I don't know, man. It looks a little doughy at parts and a little done at other parts. That is not a pie I would like choose to serve on Thanksgiving. Let's see how it tastes. Don't judge a book by its cover. Midwestern Holidays, brought to you by Cool Whip. You can whip your own cream, but then you don't have anything to put your leftovers in. Oh, there we go. It tastes like pumpkin pie, but the crust is so doughy. It's not bad. You'd be better off buying a pumpkin pie than making it in a crock pot. It's not a bad pumpkin pie. It's definitely not a great pumpkin pie, but I'm thankful there's pie. Crock pot, I can do just about almost your whole Thanksgiving. You don't need any oven space, you just need a lot of crock pots or a lot of friends, particularly a lot of friends with crock pots. Everyone has a crock pot. I guess they're probably using it on Thanksgiving.